back to my channel. It's Andrea, and today I have a Color Me reading update. So the month of June just kind of got away from me, and I just didn't get a chance to film for June. But that's okay, because I also didn't manage to read any of the books that I had picked out for June. So I'm going to go over the 3 books that I did manage to read for May, and then I'm going to go over my potential June books and July books, because my hope is, since we're going on vacation, that I'm going to bring like 1 or 2 books from both piles for June and July, and hopefully get a chance to read them at some point. So that's the plan. But first, if you've never seen one of my Color Me reading videos before, this is a project that was started by Verity of Red Dirt and Stardust and Samantha of Samantha Pans. They took inspiration from Callie Fab's Monochromatic Year, which Verity did last year, but she did it with books, and this year she and Samantha turned it into their own separate reading project. So every month there's a different color, and you just have to read or listen to a book that corresponds with that color in some way, whether it's like the word is in the title or part of the cover or the author's name, or just any way that you can correspond the color of the month to a book. So for the month of May, the color was white, and I read 3 books. The first book I read was The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is more of a young adult novel, but it was really good. The main character is Star, and she lives in kind of a rough neighborhood, but she goes to like a fancy kind of private school. So she lives in a predominantly Black neighborhood, and her school is mostly white. So she kind of feels like she's caught in the middle of these 2 worlds. She doesn't fit in with the people in her neighborhood because she goes to, you know, like a fancy private school. She doesn't really fit in at the fancy private school because she's Black, and she has to balance those 2. So the premise of the book, or the plot of the book, is Star is at a party and she sees a childhood friend who she hasn't talked to in a while, and they start talking, and a fight breaks out at the party and there's shooting. So she and her friend leave the party. While they are leaving the party and driving, they get pulled over. I'm sure you can see where this is going. And Star witnesses her childhood best friend get murdered by a police officer. The rest of the book deals with how Star is dealing with that. She has a hard time deciding whether she wants to talk to police. One, because she doesn't want everyone to know that she's the one who was with her friend. Most importantly, she doesn't want everyone at school to know she's the one who was with her friend. And 2, because she rightly doesn't think that anything will come of telling her side of the story. And the book deals with the consequences of the shooting, how Star really kind of finds herself within her friend group and her community and her relationship with her boyfriend, and how she manages to, if not, I mean, everything doesn't come together in a neat little bow by the end, but she gets a better sense of who she is and what she wants to stand up for and all that. So I did really like the book. I did not get a chance to watch the movie because I had to buy it if I wanted to watch it, and I'm weird about buying movies that I'm not sure about. I'm sure the movie was good, but I didn't get a chance to see it. But I really did like this book. It was one of those where I was reading it and I didn't want to put it down because I just wanted to keep seeing what was going to happen. So that was the first book I read. I would definitely recommend that. Even, I mean, obviously I'm not a young adult. There's nothing that says adults can't read young adult material, and I think a lot of times people think young adult and they think like Twilight or whatever, which isn't that deep. But stuff like this, they really deal with heavy, serious issues, which I think is really important for young adults to read about and learn about, and it never hurts for an adult to read about issues like that as well. So the second book I read was Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. This book was really good. I don't know how else to describe it as a very English humor book. Like, it's, if you took away all of like the British spellings and like the very specific Britishisms that are in this, you would read it and you'd be like, oh, British people wrote this book. It's about a devil or a demon and an angel who have been they've been in each other's spheres since Adam and Eve, basically. So they're as friendly as a demon and an angel can be with one another. And the apocalypse, the events that are going to bring about the apocalypse are underway, and they like their lives. They live on Earth and they have a taste for the finer things, and they enjoy being on Earth, doing whatever it is they're doing, and they don't really want the apocalypse to happen. So they team up to try to stop it. So that's basically all that I'm really gonna say about it, because one, I read it a while ago, so I don't remember too many specifics. But two, it's just, I mean, that's all you really need to know. It's an angel and a demon working together to try to stop the apocalypse. And lots of weird, random things happen. If you've ever read Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide series, the way it's written is very reminiscent of that for me. There was an Amazon Prime series with David Tennant and Michael Sheen, and I watched the first episode and I just never, it's not that it was bad, I just never finished watching it. I will at some point, but I haven't. But it was good. If you like that sort of chaotic comedy, British type thing, you might really enjoy this. And then the last book I read, and this is embarrassing how long it took me to finish this, is I finally got through White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. I think the reason this book was so hard for me to get through is it's written in a very academic way. So this isn't like reading for pleasure reading. This is like reading to learn reading, which is much harder for me because I don't absorb it as much. So while I did read it, at some point in the future, I will have to read it again and like actually take notes, because that's the kind of book it is. But so very, very, very basic description. Basically what it boils down to, what I took away from it anyway, is the reason that it is so hard for white people to talk about race. Not the only reason, just a very big reason why it's so hard for white people to talk about race is because it's been drilled into our heads that racist equals bad and non-racist equals good. So if you, not even if you're calling someone racist, but if they make some kind of comment and you're like, oh, that sounds kind of racist, what white people will take that to mean is, you're calling me a racist, therefore you're calling me a bad person, and they get very defensive and they shut down, or they say, well, I have a black friend, so I can't be racist, or things like that. So a lot of the book there's much more nuance in the book, trust me. It's just, it was a lot of information to like retain. And Deb and I were talking because she was reading the book as well, and I'm like, this book makes me feel real stupid. Like, I'm not gonna lie. It was kind of tough, but And I did feel like it was a bit repetitive, but at the same time, I think a book like this needs to be a little repetitive because you really need to internalize what she's saying. So it did make me think about how I may have reacted, or other family members may have reacted when they say something problematic and you try to correct them or explain why it's wrong, and they get super defensive and say, I don't see color, or I'm just repeating what someone else said, I don't believe that, or so my takeaway is it is a ton of work, of mental work, to admit that you may have said something racist. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. That doesn't mean you are a racist, like you joined the Ku Klux Klan or anything like that. It means that because our society is built on racism, that white people have internalized all of the privilege and all of the superiority and white supremacy that comes with being the race that's quote unquote on top, that when you work to try to help someone undo some of that, it's very uncomfortable, and a lot of times the conversation ends there because white people's comfort is more important than making Black people or people of color feel seen and heard in their experiences. So the point is to be aware and be open to feedback when people tell you that you're being problematic, and try not to get defensive about it. So it's, I think, a really good book to read. It is, I feel like it would be better to like read it in a group so you can discuss it a little more as opposed to reading it by yourself. But I think it's a good book. It has a good message. It does get a bit repetitive, but as I said, I think it's a message that needs to be constantly repeated because otherwise you're not gonna get it. So those are the books that I read for May. I keep wanting to say June, but no, I read them for May because it's July now. So June's color is black. And out of the 4 books I have in front of me, realistically, I know I'm only probably going to read one of them. So I will show you the one that I think I'm actually going to read, and then I'll show you the other ones that I'm not, because I'm like a month behind already. I just want to read at least one book that I have in my stack for June, and then I want to mostly focus on my stack for July. So the ones for June that I wanted to read, but I don't think I'm going to get to this year, is first I have Native Son by Richard Wright. I think this is an old paperback. I either got it at a library book sale or it was my dad's, but there's that. I have Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, which you can tell this is a very, very old book because the reviews on the back use terminology that would not be acceptable today. So, and then I have Black Hills by Dan Simmons. I have never read anything by Dan Simmons. I have a ton of his books and I haven't read any of them because they're a little intimidating by how big they are. But this one, he takes like historical figures or historical events, and then he just like builds a fiction novel around it. This one centers kind of around Custer and Little Bighorn. So it's they're kind of like, I think, horror books, but maybe not like Stephen King type horror books, maybe more like psychological horror books. And then the one that I think I'm actually going to read is called Black Girl Call Home by Jasmine Mans. It's a book of poems that I picked up one time at Target, and it's kind of embarrassing But the reason I'm gonna read it is because I think it'll be pretty easy to get through, because since it's poems, it's not as intense as the other ones. So it's kind of embarrassing, but that's the plan. And then for July, the color is red. So I have this memoir called The Leopard Hat, A Daughter's Story by Valerie Steiker. It's a memoir about the author and her mother, and I don't have any idea who Valerie Steiker is. I'm pretty sure I also got this at a book sale because I liked the cover. I don't know. Then I have this big honkin' book. This is 2666 by Roberto Bolaño. This is a horror novel. I've had this for a long time. I really would like to get through this and read it because we're still in summer, but Halloween is coming ever closer, and I do enjoy reading more horror the closer Halloween gets. So I'm gonna read that. Well, I plan to try and read that. Then I have another book that I picked up at Target. This is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Reading the back, it kind of sounds more like kind of like a Groundhog Day-ish book, where the main, I guess, the titular character, Evelyn Hardcastle, it says, Evelyn Hardcastle will be murdered at 11 p.m. There are 8 days and 8 witnesses for you to inhabit. We will only let you escape once you tell us the name of the killer. So it kind of, from the back, it kind of sounds like Groundhog Day meets one of those, oh my gosh, what are they called? Like the murder mystery dinner parties, kind of. So that might be pretty interesting to read. Then I have this book from Marisha Pessel called Night Film. I think it's like a thriller type novel. She has another book called Special Topics in Calamity Physics that I read several years ago, and I really enjoyed it. So hopefully I will enjoy this one as well. Then I have a lot for July. I don't know what I was thinking. This one I'm very interested to read. It's The Accursed by Joyce Carol Oates. It's about like vampires and ghosts, and I know Joyce Carol Oates can get a little weird. Although I've never read any of her novels. I think I've only read a few short stories, but it seemed like a good one to start with. And finally, I just picked this up recently during our subdivision-wide garage sale, but it is The Revenant by Michael Punk. This is the novel that inspired that Leo DiCaprio movie. I have not seen it, but I've definitely heard about it. I'm sure we've all heard about it. So it seems like I don't know, like I wasn't super interested in the movie, but that's mainly because I don't really care for Leonardo DiCaprio. But I mean, it's a guy getting revenge on a grizzly bear that viciously mauled him, so it should be a pretty interesting read. I think for the books that I'm going to bring on vacation are definitely, I'm going to bring Black Girl Come Home. I think I'm going to bring The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. And then I kind of feel like maybe I'll bring this as well, The Accursed by Joyce Carol Oates. So I have a bit of a range, you know, like poems, and then kind of like I guess a murder mystery thriller, maybe noir type of book, and then just a straight up like gothic horror book. So that is my update for Color Me Reading. What is August? Is it silver? I think so. I think August, I actually, in my bookcase back here, I've picked out all of my books for the year, so I have them separated, but I don't have the color written down, but I'm pretty sure August is silver because it looks like I have a lot of silver books over there, silver or gray. So I will see you in August to let you know if I actually read any of this stuff. Hopefully I did. And to show you what books I will be reading for August. But until then, let me know if you've read any good books lately down below, because as I always say, even though I've got all of my books picked out for this project, I'm always adding new books to my to be read list, because even though I don't get a ton of time to do it, I still do really enjoy reading. But I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're staying safe and sane and healthy and having a great day. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.